What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. First question. Hey, Jason, wanted to know what you think about Steph and Steve Kerr emphasizing that they need to evolve to accommodate their current personnel and young guys, specifically mentioning simplifying things and implementing more structure. What could this change look like in your opinion? How much sense does it make when considering their offseason additions seem to be perfect for the current system? How do the comments about more structure and play calls align with some of your previous mentions of the Warriors being at the top of the league when it comes to running organized offense? So like the Golden State system is so much about making really quick decisions, right? That when you think about guys that haven't played as much over the court, like Moses Moody, for instance, like Kuminga before last year, a lot of the reason why those guys didn't get into the rotation is Steve Kerr didn't trust them in the machine that is the Golden State 5-out offense to consistently make the right decision. So like, if you can simplify decisions and make it so that each read is very easy for specific types of players, then you can put yourself in a position where they have a better chance to succeed. I kind of go the other way, though, in the sense that I think a lot of the Warriors 5-out concepts are kind of taking hold elsewhere around the league. And a lot of these guys like Kuminga, guys like Moody, they need to learn how to play in read and react basketball anyway, you know? And so obviously by creating simpler reads, by creating simpler roles, you help in the short term. But at the end of the day, like you mentioned in your question, they brought in some guys that fit the system. The system is a big part of Golden State's success over the years, and those guys just kind of have to learn how to exist within that system. That's the reality of it. What do you think about this starting lineup for the Dubs? Steph, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, and Trayce Jackson-Davis, surrounding the dynastic duo with athleticism and speed. And if Wiggs can return close to 40% from three with three-point efficiency, and Kuminga continues to score in the 20s, their offense should flow well. And the defensive ceiling they could reach would be extremely high. Love the show. The main issue with that specific lineup is not enough shooting. I think, especially with what we know about Steve Kerr and his penchant for wanting to have guards on the floor. Like, this is a guy who routinely puts 3 guards on the floor. You think he's going to go to 1 guard? Like, that's probably not going to happen, right? Like, that's just the way that he likes to structure lineups. I understand why you'd want to go big. We talked a lot in a previous mailbag about lineup structure for the Warriors. And last year, their 2 best lineups by far were like Steph Clay, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, and Steph Pods, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond. But I also understand why you maybe don't want to do that the entire regular season, because all of that mileage on Draymond at the 5 could lead to some wear and tear issues, especially at his age. So I understand the idea of wanting to build out a big look. That said, if it's going to be a big look, I don't think it's going to be slotting up with the forwards. I think it's going to be replacing a forward with a big. So like, for instance, I think you'd have to move one of Wiggins or Kuminga to the bench, keep Pods in with the starters, and then put someone like Trayce Jackson-Davis in for whichever forward. So basically going like Steph, Pods, Kuminga, Draymond, Jackson-Davis, or Wiggins, Draymond, Jackson-Davis, something like that, right? And I mean, who knows if Wiggins can handle mentally the idea of going to the bench. That's where it gets a little tricky. But if you're going to go big, I think let's just put it this way. I would be stunned if Steve Kerr didn't start Brandon Podziemski this year. I just think that's the direction he's going to go. He was one of their best plus-minus guys all year last year. There's a lot more that he can get into offensively that he didn't really show last year. I think Pods is going to start. Russ is absolutely not going to be playing meaningful minutes with Murray and starters as a 2-guard. He is a backup point guard and a point-of-attack defender. When he sees starting minutes, it's going to be because Murray is hurt, and he will have Christian Braun or Strawther at the 2. Edit, I generally agree with what Jason is saying, but I didn't like how he characterizes Russ' role on the Nuggets. He isn't a KCP replacement. He is a Reggie Jackson replacement. Yeah, you're right. He is a Reggie Jackson replacement. I never viewed him as anything different. The only reason I discussed his mix with the starters is he will play some minutes with the starters. He did play some minutes with the starters in this preseason game. Malone, even in his media day press conference, specifically discussed the possibility of Russ potentially closing games for them, which would imply that they're at least considering it, right? So like, again, I was just discussing the possibility of what that could look like with the starters, because we will see bits and pieces of it. Obviously, the majority of Russ's role this year will be in those bench-led units. The thing people aren't acknowledging about Russ and the Nuggets is the situation and culture he's in now. Denver isn't like the Lakers or Clippers. The Nuggets actually are a team and a brotherhood and aren't going to scapegoat Russ like the LA teams did. And Jokic is different than their stars. He empowers his teammates and they want to play hard for him. I believe this will happen for Russ and he'll have a great season. Also, Russ has a skill that Denver actually needs, unlike his last couple stops. Also, nobody on the Nuggets are expecting Russ to come in and be this amazing player like in his prime. He's a Reggie Jackson replacement, and the non-Jokic minutes have been abysmal for so long that even if Russ has his head-scratching plays, it's not like those plays didn't already exist when Jokic isn't on the floor. There's truth to that, and that's why like the risk-reward factor with Russ is makes some sense, right? Like Denver's bench has always been bad. So if Russ comes in and the bench is still bad, that's the situation you've always had, but there's at least some upside there, right? That's the case for it, right? A couple things. First of all, the idea that Russ has a skill set that Denver actually needs, unlike his last couple stops, that's not true. The Clippers have been begging for a point guard forever. The Lakers didn't necessarily have a need for what Russ does, but the Clippers definitely did. And they allowed him to play exactly his style, and it still was the same issues that he had in previous stops. As I mentioned in our film session, and I did those of you guys who haven't seen this, I did a whole film session on the preseason game, and we had a segment where we talked about Russ and some of those mistakes that he makes. And guess what? His first game with Denver looked exactly like just about every other game that he's played in his career. A lot of good, a lot of bad. Awesome driving kick possessions where he creates easy layups and threes, some awesome on-the-ball defensive possessions, getting back cut, getting ran by for offensive rebounds, smoking a bunch of layups. Like that's the experience. It's like that there's not you can blame organizations all you want. By the way, the Lakers are actually a shit show. They had a bad coach. They had a front office that is, not necessarily the most respected in the league, right? Like they have their issues that you could potentially point to with Russ. Clippers, they don't. They have a very good front office, an excellent coaching staff, and they needed what he did. And I watched him with the Clippers, and he made all the same mistakes he made with the Lakers. It doesn't matter how good of a leader Jokic is. It doesn't matter the quality opportunities that he sets him up with. It doesn't matter how good Denver's coaching staff is. It doesn't matter the role that they need him to play. The issues are still there. He's bad at making layups. He's a poor decision maker. And then on the defensive end, he loses sight of his responsibilities off the ball regularly. And until those things change, we all know the good that Russ brings to the table. It's about the bad that cancels it out. Hey, Jason, you didn't get to Mavs Media Day, but I was interested in what you think of the potential upside of Dereck Lively. Interesting, the front office's comp for him is said to be Joakim Noah as an elite defensive anchor and for his passing skills. Both him and Kidd during Media Day really emphasized his improvement in trying to dominate the paint and offensive ability and post moves. Dereck Lively to me is like the quintessential modern NBA center. I would be shocked if within the next 5 years he's not like one of the top 10 centers in the league. Elite rim protection, the ability to guard in space and switches, the ability to read and react as a 5-out big, meaning like, and he doesn't even need to do this in Dallas, just because they don't really run this system. But like, I think if you were to pick him up and drop him in a 5-out system, he'd look great. But like the ability to dribble at guys and make reads and hit guys cutting, the rolling hard to the rim and providing vertical spacing. He's got good touch. Like I actually think this is a guy that in the long run will make some jump shots and will become a guy that can duck in against a smaller defender and hit a little left shoulder hook or something like that. I think he's a quintessential modern NBA center. I think he's awesome. I think his potential is through the roof. Like I there's no reason in the world why he couldn't be like Jared Allen and do a lot of the stuff that he does for Cleveland in the long run. Again, there's stuff he's got to get to. Jared Allen has that like floater that he hits all the time and the hook that he's really efficient with. He's got good hands around the basket, but I think Lively can build that stuff out over time. The Bucks weren't bad against above 500 teams, though. It was the bad teams that beat them. It was when their lineup inconsistency and bad stagger lineups with poor bench players that led to losses, not their starters. Their starters dominated teams more than any other team in the NBA, including the Celtics, who also played in the weak East. By the way, guys, like this was in regards to some of my comments about the Bucks in their relationship with the Lakers. I had the Lakers a tiny bit above them, one spot in the same tier of teams. I think the Bucks are the Lakers in the Eastern Conference. Why? The upside is based on their top end talent. Like if you're a Bucks fan, it's like we got Dame and Giannis. If you're a LeBron fan, or a Lakers fan, we got LeBron James and Anthony Davis. The role players are really flawed and one-dimensional, right? Same issue for both teams. The team severely lacks defensive personnel. Same issue for the Lakers as for the Milwaukee Bucks. They were better against the good teams and lost too many games to mediocre and bad teams. Same thing for the Lakers as for the Bucks. They're to me the same type of team in either conference. Lots of upside, but lots of flaws, right? And that's why I have them right next to each other in the standings. The reason why I had the Lakers a little bit above is I thought they were a little bit better. Obviously, the Bucks won 2 more games, but in a substantially weaker conference. The Lakers were a little better against the best teams in the league, and the Lakers beat the Bucks head-to-head twice without LeBron James. So that was the main reason why I gave them that slight edge. Hello, Jason. Do you think Karl-Anthony Towns can play the same role for the Knicks, similar to how KP played for Boston for a championship? Or am I crazy to think like that? Appreciate the content as always. So Kristaps Porzingis is a much better rim protector. So that's the thing for Boston for Minnesota, for New York, that KAT could never do that KP does for Boston, right? On the offensive end, though, it's like the identical role. Pick and pop, be an aggressive above the break 3-point shooter, drive closeouts when you see opportunities. And when they switch ball screens and put Jalen Brunson's defender on you, can you quickly duck down to the elbow and score against the switch the way that Kristaps Porzingis can? Porzingis is better, in my opinion, and not from a health standpoint, but when he's actually healthy and available on the floor, he's better at attacking switches. He's a better above the break 3-point shooter. He's a better rim protector. So like KP is just a better player, but KAT's obviously more available. That said, I do think KAT can fill a similar role. And if that optimizes, if that all comes to fruition, it just elevates the ceiling for this Knicks team in a major way. All right, 3 more quick ones. I'm a little confused as to why nobody seems to have considered moving Rudy Gobert to the bench and starting Naz Reid for the Timberwolves. Naz has been a consistently above average shooter and creator for the center spot the last couple of years, and having him in the starting lineup instantly makes the spacing much more competitive, and I feel creates a much more logical rotation. Ant and Randall will have more room to attack the rim, while Randall would also have another option to kick out to on the perimeter. Also on paper, I feel like the guards on the bench would be better served by the defensive presence of Rudy Gobert in the second unit, while also spacing the floor out more so you can have better, cleaner lanes for dunks. I'm not a Timberwolves fan or anything, so I'm not approaching that scenario from the mindset of trying to cope with the trade, but I'm curious what you think, Jason. Is having Gobert come off the bench just completely out of the question? And outside of the media optics of benching a player with such a large contract, what basketball issues do you see that would make this adjustment non-viable? So here's the thing. It's situational. Like you start Gobert. But yeah, like if you're having trouble spacing the floor and Ant and Julius both look really hesitant and uncomfortable and is a late game situation, I could see a version of it where they go, okay, we'll supplement a little extra defense. We'll take Conley out and we'll put Dante DiVincenzo in. We'll go Ant, Dante, Jaden, Julius, Naz for like a key stretch of possessions. Maybe it's a end of the second quarter when you're trying to go into the half on a run, or end of the game in a clutch situation. You absolutely can consider that based on what's going on with the team. But I think you start the game with Gobert. There's also a continuity thing there. One of the things with Rudy Gobert too is like he legitimately is one of the 5 or 6 best defensive players in the world. Like all the criticism about him on the defensive end is literal bullshit. I was critical of him on the game winner from Luka because I thought he made a mental mistake. He took away the drive and gave up the step back 3 when you could trust your help defense there and make a lesser player make a shot instead of leaving the second best player in the world, for a wide open 3 to end the game, basically. Not a wide open, but an easy 3 to win the game. But aside from that specific possession, all those clips of Rudy Gobert getting scored on that were going around, it's kind of BS because on a point per possession basis, he was great in isolation, and he always is. Rudy Gobert is an awesome defensive player. And so there's a certain tone you want to set at the start of games defensively, and it's part of the identity of the Timberwolves. So I would keep him in the starting lineup. But yeah, you absolutely consider benching him for Naz Reid in specific situations if it dictates that. Hey, Jason, love the show. Quick mailbag question. The Timberwolves have too many guards and the Lakers have too many forwards. What are your thoughts on the T-Wolves and Lakers engaging in something around Rui and Nickeil Alexander-Walker? I think that'd be perfect for both parties involved, and the salaries work too. I actually had a similar thought the other day, but the reason why I turned away from it is I think the Lakers need a legit high-level starter. And while Nickeil Alexander-Walker fits a positional need, which is a guard that can defend, I don't think he's quite high-level starter. And so at that point, Rui is actually more important to the Lakers right now, what they do offensively, than Nickeil Alexander-Walker is to the Wolves, or to what Nickeil Alexander-Walker would be for the Lakers if he came over. So it just wouldn't make sense. If you're going to trade Rui or D'Lo, it's got to be for somebody closer to Bruce Brown's ilk, which is a bigger, stronger, more like starting caliber two-way player, right? Now, that would require the Lakers to include draft compensation, but that's kind of the point, right? Like, I think the Lakers should trade draft compensation to get better players back in the deal. So that's why I wouldn't make Rui available for a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. But maybe if you're the Timberwolves, you can look to make a similar sort of a deal with a different team that's deep at forward. So like maybe you call a team like Houston that has a ton of guys in their rotation, and you offer them Nickeil Alexander-Walker for somebody like Tari Eason, for instance, and you bring back an athletic forward that can help you a little bit. Last question. Hypothetical here. If D'Lo and Reaves are redundant, why were the Lakers so hell-bent on keeping Reaves? He is not a substantially better player than D'Lo. It's a tiny difference at most. The Lakers could have traded Reaves for Caruso, and that would have made the Lakers a much better team with a much better chance at the title. Also, Caruso would guard Murray a million times better, and they have a much better chance of beating the Nuggets. I can see them in the finals with the Celtics, and who knows from there. A couple things. Trading a high-level starter to get a high-level starter kind of defeats the purpose. I do think that D'Lo is close to Austin as a regular season player, but I think Austin is like a chasm better than D'Lo within the postseason. And then it also just makes more sense for the Lakers' timeline. He's younger. He has 2 more guaranteed years on his deal and a player option, although I think he'll drop that and look to extend. But he has 2 more guaranteed years on the deal. Both years are less than $14 million. So from a money standpoint, he's not taking up barely any of your cap while also being a useful starter. I would trade Austin if it brought back like a legit bona fide third star. But he's your only high-level starter next to LeBron James and Anthony Davis right now. So you can't trade him for just another high-level starter. You need to turn a flawed starter, which is D'Lo or Rui, into a high-level starter if you're going to actually dramatically improve the team.